Welcome to the First Time Facilitator podcast. Whether you're a first-time facilitator or a seasoned pro, listen in for tips and tricks to make a bigger impact at the next workshop you deliver. And now, your host. She looks like a baby giraffe when she's riding a bike, Leanne Hughes.
Hello everyone, I'm Leanne, host of the podcast, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. If you're listening in, it probably means that you're starting out or wanting to improve your journey in running group workshops and look, just presenting in general. So thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to stay posted on more resources from the First Time Facilitator, please visit firsttimefacilitator.com and sign up to the flip chart there. The flip chart is a monthly newsletter where I share some cool articles, more tips, and useful tools to help your workshops become more engaging. I'd also love to hear from you wherever you are. So if you run a podcast, you only get to find out the number of downloads per episode. You don't get any context on who's listening in. So please either sign up to the newsletter or send me an email, hello@firsttimefacilitator.com, and I'll respond to you. I love it when listeners reach out. I've just gotten off the line to our next guest, Greg Mitchell. He's a bit of a superstar in the education world, and he does many things, including cartooning, MCing, and of course, facilitating. This is a longer episode, but I really didn't want to cut it back because Greg shares so many useful strategies. In this episode, we spoke about some Bandaid fixes that you can use when you feel that you're losing participants, why you need to treat facilitation like entertainment, the third mindset, and that's the one that comes after the fixed and the growth mindset, why unpredictability can also help hook your audience, and to notice and realise that facilitation is a very emotional job. I hope you enjoy the show. Let me know your thoughts. Now, onto the show. Our guest today suffers from the same affliction that I do, and that's enthusiasm. And this is a condition which helps him deal happily with issues such as stress management, positive intelligence, conflict resolution, resilience, among many others. He's worked with organisations at all levels and is adept at creating entertaining workshops that are practical for people working in high-stress situations. And he's enjoying being self-employed, having finally found a boss that he really likes. Lucky you, Greg. Welcome to the show, Greg Mitchell.
Thank you for having me. It's a joy to be here, honestly.
It's good to reconnect. You've held many roles, from order picker and toaster salesman through to cartoonist and education consultant. How did you end up working in the world of training and facilitation?
Well, this is actually about the 17th, 18th year of my 3-month trial of working for myself. I've been in the gig economy a long time. I used to be a consultant for Catholic Ed. I looked after science for about 250 schools all over Western Australia. So that got me into the training mode where I was working with teachers and also administrators and teacher assistants and also demonstrating stuff with kids. And I've got my own theory on child development with a whole range of stuff, which ends up in a mindset called the benefit or the global mindset with kids. And it's very practical, hands-on doing stuff like that. I had a 3-month break for long service leave. And basically I said, well, I wonder if I could earn enough money to keep me going just by being an independent consultant. And the point of difference always is it's entertaining, it's engaging, but you come away learning stuff at the end because I'm still a teacher and I force people to learn in the nicest possible way. So you won't learn my workshop unless you've told me what you've learned on the way out or been engaged with it and things like that. I started that and now 18 years later I still haven't got a plan. So the plan is always let's get the next job. At the moment I'm writing a book on basically behaviour management, how to get the best out of the most difficult groups. And I'm just writing a book called The Behaviour Ambulance.
Good title.
For emergencies. So it's got sections on Bandaid, stitches, operations, and defibrillator. I can't even say the word. Defibrillating.
Defibrillator.
Yeah. Including My favourite one is CPPR, which is for your crazy, paranoid, psycho resuscitation. Because most people under stress have two voices. They have one really logical voice which tells you what the job is and what I'm going to do next, and they can parrot those. But in the background, there's this crazy, paranoid, psycho voice who's telling you, I'm no good at this, this is stupid. They read politics where there's no politics. They see problems where there are no problems. And it's why 80% of our ATAR kids are suffering from anxiety and 40% have got depression, because we've never learned how to resuscitate that, how to just train them how to do simple stuff like breathe, question whether it's actually real or you can do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how just teaching those simple skills to teams and groups of people totally changes the way they do stuff. And then I just suffer from enthusiasm. So I do all sorts of things like MCing conferences to talking to your four-year-old kids, So, and if anybody rings up and says, will you craft a message for me, or I'll even draw it. I've just got good at doing
anything that you're asked to do.
Oh, you name it. I've done everything from community meetings in Large Manu with a police constable writing the decisions on the board and taking photos so it's evidence. I'm not so good at corporate because I tend to be honest, but most of the time I'm just amazed at what will come through the door.
Well, that's true, because I'd heard about you through a recommendation through someone else through the TAFE network. So I think it's all really word of mouth. And when people, this was a few years ago, were introducing, hey, Greg is a really great guy, you should take him up to run training for your trades staff, it's because you are entertaining and you can relate to those guys. So
yeah, I think the interesting thing is because I've had a really diverse background and I come from a really stuffed up family. When you tell people, your parents couldn't look after you from when you were 2 and all of those sorts of things, it's not the typical teaching background. And so, you name it, I've failed at it. I've got a degree in complete failure at everything. Dyslexic, I'm lousy at all sorts of stuff, but I'm persistently positive, so I just keep going. So I got a degree in education and a post degree in education, being dyslexic, and I even managed to win the literature prize for the university along the way, and I still can't spell. All I do is just think, well, if I was you sitting there in that workshop, what would I want?
Yeah.
And how many people have walked out of a workshop thinking, I've had bowel movements which are more entertaining than this. And you think, and I see people in meetings constantly who sit there going, oh, yes, terrific, great, walk out. What did you learn? Nothing. Basically, when I met you, it was through most of my work is wrapped around instructional intelligence. What do you do to make people learn? It's as simple as that. But my job is to go, mate, I'm going to make you laugh, make you cry. I'm going to change your life. And guess what? When you walk out, you're going to know this stuff.
So let's talk about that. I think that is your point of difference, is you're memorable because you come across as an entertainer. Is that something that you had to hone over a few years, or has that always been the way that Greg's always been? He's always been a guy that at a party or in a team, he's a guy that entertains.
No, I don't go to parties. I suffer from enthusiasm. God, I don't drink. I don't use drugs. I don't even drink coffee. I've got cultural ADHD. And the problem is now I'm basically a quiet person, but I think that most people really like to engage with the world. And it's kind of funny how many people these days are sort of like thought leaders in Australia who are stand-up comedians, And it's because humour breaks people. If you want people to learn, you've got to get them out of their constant way of thinking. So when For example, I work a lot with year 10 to 12 students. Now, year 10 students should be just given a gap year. They shouldn't be at school for a year. Just go away, find out what the world's like. They know it all. They've already divorced their parents. They know everything they want to learn. But their trouble is that they never pay attention because everybody hates teaching them. So it's just, let's go through the motions. Whereas my point is, well, if they're not learning anything, let's have fun teaching them something. But you've got to, any audience you've got to wake them up. You've got to get them to pay attention. And the easiest way to pay attention, I get, is drop in something that they're not expecting, like humour. So I walk into year 10s and 12s to 10s to 12s who are a tough audience, never want to pay attention. They've seen every speaker. They're bored out of their brain. Why are we doing this? There's usually no context except this guy's here to tell you how to get through this year. And I got them for 50 minutes. And you're going, what do I do? Well, first I've got to get their attention. So I tell them the story that whenever you turn up in Australia, you can tell how good someone's going to be at learning by whether they smile at you or not. And so I show them how I walk in and smile at people, and I crack this really sick smile that I've got. And I say, I look at people and see if they smile back. And the great people always smile back. And they always go, oh, g'day, how are you? Even kids do that. Great kids do that. But there are some people who just go, oh, and, avoid your eyes and sigh or walk in. Big men do it. They stretch past you and make you try to feel like, gee, he's scary. I have to watch out for him. So I'll just know that I'm not the big dog here. And I go, I do this in schools all over the place, and I can just about tell kids how they're going to succeed this year by how well they smile. And they look at me and go, I say, yeah. And I just give them an example and go, I walked into a year 10 class once, year 10 girls admittedly, and I walked in. I smiled at this girl beautifully. I'm all dressed up, got my suit on, got my tie on. She doesn't even look at me. She just turns to the girl next to her and goes, he's got pink on his tie, he must be gay. And I thought, gee, she's got a big mouth. She must be a bitch. And suddenly, every kid in the room's listening to me because kids are really impressed by bad role models. If you put somebody out the front who says everything nice and sweet and nice, drop in that little story, every kid's entertained. They're already listening at you. That's like, gee, he swore. And I go, that's... stand up if you've ever used that word. And every kid stands up. I go, yeah, point made. The difference is that they've entertained. They're engaged. But I don't stop and go, oh, I just said a rude word. Isn't that a funny joke? I just keep talking. So that means, oh, they're awake and they're listening. Then I use visuals. All of my presentations have got big visuals involved, big photos, everything like that. And they're stunning photos. I don't put a photo in unless it's great. Then I make a move. I do things like, okay, my job is to make you awesome. Just have a look at the person next to you to see if they're awesome. Pat them on the back, say it's good to see you today, shake hands, welcome them to the show, and suddenly they're moving. And instead of doing hands up if you ever have, because hands up so, stand up if you've ever done this, stand up if. So now they're physically engaged with it. And I can tell you, 10 minutes in, they are in a different world. So the humour is there, but it's not just there for the humour's sake. You need a hook. You need something when you come in to say to any audience, here you are. This is who I am. I'm not eye candy or anything like that. I'm in my extreme 30s. I'm 66 this year, but no chance of retirement. I got 30 years more work to do, easy. Imagine how awesome I'm going to be at this when I'm 95. But the key is with it is that it doesn't matter what you look like or who you are. It's about the message. And the message when I start, I've got a pretty good understanding of what my kudos is. Kudos, know, understand, do. What I want them to know, understand, and do is my kudos. It's what gives me meaning and will get me that accolade at the end. Mm-hmm. So if I know what I want them to know, understand, and do at the beginning, but what I'm looking at is any time I see those eyes switch off, I've got to re-engage. So that means physicality. Boys hate it because men like territory. Their two biggest drives, sex and territory. When you get to my age, it's bed and shed. But what they do is you've got to move their bodies. You've got to go, okay, now stand up and find a new partner. Or stand up if you know the answer to this question. Stand up if this has ever happened to you. Stand up if that's ever happened to you. Stand up if you've ever gone to your bedroom and slammed the door. Those sorts of questions where you get them emotionally engaged, but also physically engaged with them. Turn to your partner and tell them what you learned out of that. And then I pick on one of them. So you're going, hey, you, and I always pick on the worst ones first, because what happens is when you get hands up, you get all the smart ones. The genetic celebrities take over and the other people just back off. Mm. And in so many cultures, people don't talk out because it's culturally not right. Because I know they're wise and I know they've learnt it. I want to engage them as a thought leader in this. Mm. And even if they don't know the answer, and I go, I don't know. Always celebrate when someone says, I don't know, because, they've just made those steps, the unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. Yeah, a bit of pain, excellent. Who are you going to find out from? Mm. Find out from someone else. Because I see this as a collaborative effort, that everybody's engaged in learning here, not just the presenter or the facilitator. If I'm losing them, how do I engage them? And you've got a myriad of things these days to do it in. You've got stories, you've got videos. Video clips these days are just brilliant because you can just drop in a 2-second video of anything awesome that you want. And I got a file of, probably 350 clips.
Oh, wow.
But all they are is just like somebody sends me something good. I just save it. The guy who's done the thing on secrets where he asked people, he sent them a postcard and send me a secret that nobody else knows about yet. Yeah. There's one of, 20 famous men on this, and this lady says, one of these people is the father of my child and he pays me a lot of money to be quiet. And you go, they're just brilliant. And, there was one other side of it was everyone who knew me before September 11 thinks that I am dead. Oh, now they're the sort of things that you can slip into a presentation. Just that I just scan them up and they're just in the pile. So if I'm thinking about telling a secret or getting the secret is try these secrets. You can slip that into almost anything, and all it is one slide. That's all you need.
Yeah.
I muck around a lot. I'm still a teacher. I know what I want them to know, understand, and do. These things just fit around the outside. That's why the turn to your partner and is really important. I could call it TTYPA because I just use it too often. But turn TTYPA and shake their hand. Find out if they've got a pulse. But the other side is just turn to your partner and tell them the 5 steps that I just went through. So then they can get recaps. So those little structures you can use again and again and again to break up the big chunks.
The title of your book is really impressive, The Behaviour Ambulance. I think, do clients come to you, I'm talking more about adult learners now, do they sort of come to you and go, we've got a situation now where we need more resilient leaders, or we've got really disruptive behaviours at the office? They come to you kind of not for prevention, but it's mainly to come for a cure?
It's really weird. I've been looking around in Australia. I work with a group in Geelong who do a lot of professional development for schools. This year they decided to do something on behaviour management because they've always wanted to do a behaviour management conference. And so we went out looking for a guru because there's usually got to be a guru. Couldn't find anybody. I said to him, somebody ought to write a book about this because it's really important. So when you start doing that, I do workshops on working with difficult kids, and I do workshops on middle leadership and how to get the best, which we were talking about before the podcast. And I went, somebody's got to write a book on this. Somebody's got to do a good thing. So I started writing this book, and I came up with my formula of it called the Behaviour Agenda, which was really big. Beginning of this year, I was doing I do a conference for beginning teachers, and I just did a thing with my beginning teacher daughter called 10 Strategies in 15 Minutes, where I just stood up and went, here's 10 things that I know work. And Bonnie, my daughter, helped me. And it was a freaking success. The kids were raving about it. And no real, this is the theory behind it and this is why it works. This is just the strategies. And then, so I thought, I'm writing this book. It's got all the good stuff, all the theory and stuff like that. I should make it more accessible for teachers. So it like covers all bases. And it's got things in it like Bandaids, stuff that you can do in just to stop the bleeding.
Oh, cool.
Stitches to stitch up the gaping wounds, but they involve a bit of pain and a bit of time in a healing. Then operations, which are really quite simple strategies, but if you really look at them, they would solve a lot of problems, but they're a big operation which involves more than just you. So then there's the defibrillation, can't say the word, but the defib thing that they stick on your heart for when there's a crisis, like when someone's losing it, how do you handle it? What do you do? And having simple things like having a place where you can go and sit is really important, because if you've got people who lose it, you need to have thought in advance of where can they go and sit? How do you talk about them? What do you physically do, particularly if it's in an office or a group of people, and how you don't move away from them, you move towards them, not to confront them, but so that you could guide them to that quiet place. Really practical stuff like that. And the written bit gives me a chance to tell jokes and write stories.
Taking every opportunity to weave those jokes in. I'm thinking of our listeners who are first-time facilitators, and they'd probably be curious in hearing, one or maybe two of your Bandaid solutions that you have, because I think the fear that most people have facilitating isn't in delivering the content or being engaging. It's, what do I do if someone in the room isn't engaging or throws me a response that throws the whole room into disarray, or, there's like one thing that can happen in a workshop that can derail it. So if there's one little strategy that we can use, that'd be great.
Well, the turn to your partner and is a brilliant strategy. So turn to your partner and what would you do with this problem is great. The no hands up is brilliant. Don't have hands up. Get people to stand up. Ask a question if they don't know it. Get them. Cheat and teach are the same thing, works. If somebody doesn't know an answer, they're allowed to cheat. So you ask the person next to you. And if they don't know the answer, they ask the person next to them. But the key with that is they've all got to say it on the chain on the way back.
That's cool.
One year 4 kid goes, Chinese whiskers, which is wrong on so many levels.
The irony of that.
But it's like, talk it back. So this person gets 3 or 4 different chances at it. Those little things can make a huge difference. The best one that I've ever used, though, full stop, and it's so simple, is if you think you're losing a group, just get them to turn to each other. So put them in pairs. Just quickly put them in pairs. You two, you two, you two. Figure out who's going to go first, who's not. Give them 30 seconds. Person who's first, tells the other person the story of their life in 30 seconds. Now, you don't want them to tell them the whole story of your life. You don't need, I was born on the 13th of December 1952 in Buran Road, Glen Huntly. No, you don't need all that stuff, just the biggest chunk, right? The big chunks in it. You've only got 30 seconds. But then you train them to listen. So you've got to look at the other person. Don't speak. Keep your hands still and remember what was said, because I might just pick on you. And then you finish the first one, stop it and say, that was pretty interesting. Anybody learn anything from each other? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, swap other way. Do that. And then do things like, tell me something about your partner. And they say things like, typical one, about 200 people in the room. Tell me about your partner. They've been working together for 20 years. Tell me about your partner. Oh, her name's Maria. She was born in Malta. She's got 4 sisters. I went, who knew that Maria was born in Malta? And about 5 people put up their hand. I went, Maria, how long have you been working with this team? She went, 20 years. And I went, what happens? We get so busy doing the busyness, we forget the business. And the business is always people. They're with you.
Yeah.
They're with you because now you've changed the whole dynamic. And it's it will take you, the whole thing takes 5 minutes maximum. So if I've got a group who's not engaged or, when the guys are sitting there with their arms folded and they're, but get them to go and find somebody else and tell them the story of your life. 5 minutes, they're back with you, and then you've got something to relate with. So this will relate with you or that'll relate with that and this type of totally changes the dynamic in the room, particularly if you move them to find a partner, and it puts you back in charge, but you haven't added any content. All you've added is that we're acknowledging everybody in the room. And then you can get back on with what you're doing very simply because we're building a team. The biggest thing I find with most beginning facilitators is they've got content and they've got a delivery system. So the delivery system usually is technology these days. So it's going to be variations on PowerPoint, Prezi, whatever thing that you've got. They've got their message, how they're going to deliver it. And it's always word-based. It's always talking, that sort of stuff. But what they don't realise is that if you sit there and listen to me, you don't learn. You've got to engage people in it. And if they're not engaged, get them engaged in the lowest common denominator, which is themselves. Because you don't need more content. You've got content coming out of everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't need better presentation stuff. How can you get much better than a video screen and things that move on that? You need strategies that teach people the global mindset, that we're all in this together. It's not about whether you know, it's about whether we can do it.
Yeah.
And that's the big point. Those are the things that really work. So
you got hundreds of strategies.
I got thousands of them. It comes to the point where I've got to go, I've got to stop. Got to stop here. So I'm going to have to put it in a book. I made it kind of pretty. We'll get it printed. The trouble is that I've stolen it from everywhere. So anytime I see something good, I knock it off. And it kind of becomes mine. But I can never remember where I got it from in the first place. And I've got some, because great learners always add to what's going on. So if you give them a good idea, your learners should take it and improve on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the same as well. Whenever there's something that's really engaging or fun, I kind of steal it, and then I've got this bucket of things that I can rely on as well. Not as big as the bucket that you must have.
Oh, that's only because I'm older. But what happens is with it is that you put those in, And you don't remember that you know this until you're under pressure,
Yeah.
until you're thinking, oh, God, this isn't working. Oh, yeah, I remember. I've got that. And, simple ones. They're sitting there. You've told them everything. They're tired. It's getting towards the end of the workshop, but you've still got half an hour to go. And you're thinking, oh, God, what am I going to do? Get a piece of paper, fold it into 8 squares. So I've got the Greg Mitchell fast food paper folding method, which takes an A4 paper, fold it into a hot dog fold. You'll figure it out. And that gets it in half, and then fold it into a hamburger bun. That gets into half again. Fold it into a hash brown. That gets in half again. Unwrap it. You've got 8 rectangles on there. Now, I want you to go to 8 different people in the room and find out a different thing from each one of them that they learnt today. But you're not allowed to write on your piece of paper. And you give it to them, they write on yours, you write on theirs. Swap it over, swap it over, swap it over until you've got 8. But every time you write on someone else's, make sure you leave your name on there so they know who they got it from. So they go and do that, and you make it, try and make it quick, like 6 minutes, that's it. They sit down, now they've got a summary of the day, and you pick on someone. Tell me one thing you learned today. I got this from.
Yeah, rather than having going around and
whoever they said, it goes to that person.
That's cool.
And then it bounces around the corner. It's called popcorn. But another little Bandaid. And there's stuff that you pull out of your butt from who knows where. Things that you can do in meetings and in groups and in facilitations, which just make it fun.
But I also liked your analogy of just folding the paper and the fast food, because most people say fold it in half again.
Oh. Folding paper is one of God's tests of spiritual development. There are some people who just can't do it. So, put it in fast food terms.
Yeah, everyone understands. You're Australian
everybody
audience.
Knows the broad church of fast food. So,
we do, unfortunately.
You can get chicken nuggets and sausage rolls in there if you wanted to.
Or meat pies.
Yeah, it all depends on how you fold.
Yeah. Now, Greg, if you had to only give one piece of advice to a first-time facilitator, we've gone through many different strategies and ideas in this interview, but what would be the one piece of advice that you would offer to someone starting out?
Have fun. There's nothing so serious that you can't smile and enjoy yourself. If you're not enjoying yourself, they're not enjoying themselves. I don't want to do a job that's serious all the time. And even the toughest groups that I've worked with, and I've worked with St John's Ambos, emergency nurses, whole stack of other things, they've got the best gallows humour in the world because they need that stuff. And they've all got a sense of gallows humour. They've all got that stuff that loosens up the load. And just find ways to have little bits of whimsy in it. You don't have to be a stand-up comic. You don't have to make it all serious, though. You've got to just figure out, how can I show them that I'm actually enjoying this? Yeah. Because when you're a first-up presenter, 1, you always doubt whether you know enough, or 2, you think you know a lot. And the truth is somewhere in between. You probably know a lot because you're a facilitator, because you know this stuff and you want to do it, but you don't know it all, and you've got to know your limits and what do you work on and that sort of stuff. And I think the whole thing is with it is don't let the serious take over too much, because that's where the crazy paranoid psycho lives, who will tell you constantly, I didn't get that point covered. I didn't get that point covered. Because the other main point I would think is that they don't know, whoever you're delivering doesn't know what you don't deliver. So you can be driving home, and I always do, because I'm driving home going, I could have done, I wished I had have. And it's not that they don't know what I haven't taught them. Right. And the other one that I would say is know that it's an emotional job. And when you finish, beware in the hour or 2 afterwards, you will feel bad at some stage. I don't care how awesome that presentation was or how fabulously successful you are. There's usually a sugar dip in your physicality somewhere in the next hour or two.
Really? So that still happens to you?
Oh, yeah. I've been flying back from the most successful conferences ever where, I've got bookings and pats on the back and all of this sort of stuff. And I'll be on the plane thinking, oh, God, I wish I was dead. I'm feeling. Then I go, let's just eat something.
Yeah, because it is exhausting.
Just drink some water, not alcohol. Alcohol doesn't help. Although you live in the land of catered lunches when you do this job. But Qantas always wants to give you grog. Relax yourself, all of those sorts of things. But know that it takes its emotional toll. I know a lot of people who are burnt out and have had brilliant ideas, who are much smarter than me and much more talented than I am, but who get caught by the voices in their head after a while because they think they're failing when really it's just that physical toll. So look after yourself, be physically fit, but be aware that it's an emotional roller coaster. If you get highs, you're going to get lows, and be aware of that too. Yeah. Oh, and remember that I love you. That's the other thing. There's always someone else who cares for you.
There is, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant advice. I think we could talk for all day, Greg, easily.
Oh, I do. I suffer from enthusiasm. I warned you. This could go for days
and it's
and
bad
days.
when you got someone else that's enthusiastic. It's just like, I just want to.
Yeah, well, there's always another idea. I'm always thinking about. I can't turn that one off.
That's all right. And finally, Greg, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or find out more about what you do?
Simple. Just go on the email. I'll give you the email, which is mitch@space.net.au, and that email comes through to the business here, and usually it'll be Kate who follows it up. Kate knows who I am when I don't know where I am, so she's really good at making that work. But there's a whole ton of stuff that I'd love to talk with and work with, but mainly for this audience, it's the instructional intelligence stuff that most people are after, and I'm happy to share that with anybody anytime. That's the global global mindset.
Benefit mindset.
What I've got is yours, so I don't have copyright. There won't be copyright on any of my books or anything like that. Just simply because I've stolen it from someone else. That's what we do.
That is what we do. It's a sharing economy now. Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much for everything that you've spoken about today and for being so open as well. And I can see exactly why your workshops are so entertaining. I've had a really entertaining conversation with you and I'm excited about listening to it again. I've taken notes personally about everything that you've said because those are things that I can put straight into my back pocket for the next time I deliver a workshop. So,
terrific.
Thank you so much for your time.
You. So you have a great day and stay wonderful, and I hope we keep in touch. We'll see if we can keep more good things coming.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. Thanks so much for tuning in to First Time Facilitator. If you like the episode, please share it with your mates or subscribe to the podcast feed in iTunes. Till next time,